All right, greetings, everyone. This is a brief subject to beginner's course. That's what this is. This is a brief subject to beginner's course. And a lot of people have asked me or encouraged me to do this. We have a lot of questions from friends, families, people I don't know, people I do know, people on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. So this is not a definitive course in the fullness. This is just a basic 1, 2, 3 introduction that I would like to give based on my experience. I have over 20 years, close to 20 years experience on doing subject to the existing mortgage. Subject to is a particular type of real estate investing. Okay. There are different types. So we're going to deal with this particular one. And of course, if you have any questions on the other aspects, of course, we can touch on those. But subject to means that you are taking property or receiving property subject to the existing mortgage, which means you're getting the deed and the existing mortgage that the original seller, a homeowner, had is coming with it. So what that means is that typically when you sell a property or you transfer a property over to someone, whether you're selling it or signing it over to them, typically what happens is that there usually is no mortgage on the property, all right, especially if it's done in a family sense, or whatever the case may be, it's already paid for. But we're talking about properties that have existing mortgages on them where the homeowner or the seller, for whatever reason or another, cannot sell the property in the traditional way, or maybe doesn't want to sell the property traditional way. So what that means is that in a typical transaction, when you buy real estate, a property is sold and then it's sold to the end buyer, and the end buyer received the deed to the property. That's how they hold title and that's how they claim ownership. And the end buyer typically is going to get a loan from a new lender or a new mortgage company that they will be paying to that new mortgage company and that new lender, which means they have to go through the down payment criteria, the credit check criteria, and other things, closing process, this, that, and the other. So when we say that we are receiving or taking a property subject to the existing mortgage, what we're saying is that the mortgage that the original seller now, instead of that being disposed of or paid off, that mortgage is now coming with the property, coming with the deed, okay? There's pros and cons to this. Definitely the pro to it is that you as the receiver or you as the end buyer do not typically, in most cases never, have to get a credit check. Okay, you don't have to go through the process of running your credit, making sure your FICO score is up or down or this or that or the other. So what typically happens is that the seller has to leave the property for one reason or another, couldn't sell it, maybe because there is a time factor here. It could be a time factor, such as a new job, such as maybe the property was owned by husband and wife, and the husband is no longer with us or deceased or with her, or vice versa. And it has become an issue of domestic where they just want to get rid of the property. They don't want to have any emotional issues attached to it. They put it on the market sometimes for a long time. It just doesn't sell. Not every property sells. Maybe not every property is in a condition to sell. So you're getting a property for whatever reason, and we're going to run down the different type of reasons, but for whatever reason, you'll be getting a property that could be in excellent turnkey condition. You'll be getting a property that could be, might need a little rehab on it. Maybe the person still lives in there. Maybe there need to be some repairs, maybe on the roof, maybe on the structure itself. But in most cases, you're getting properties that are being lived in already, okay, that are habitable. Most of the time, they're not inhabitable, but they're habitable. So that's what we're talking about. So subject to, so you're getting it subject to the mortgage. The property is coming with a mortgage that you're not going to go to the bank and qualify for because the seller or the former homeowner is going to leave the mortgage in place. That's what they're going to do. They're going to leave the mortgage in place. and you are going to take over the property by becoming the owner, because that's how you're going to solidify your ownership, and you're going to continue to pay the existing mortgage. The benefit to that, again, number one benefit, is that you do not have to qualify for a mortgage at all. Okay, you don't have to qualify. So if you'll go try to buy that nice 3 or 4 bedroom that you like across the street or in town or somewhere the case may be, and you try to get a loan and you find out that your FICO score is not satisfactory, lenders won't give it to you, high interest rate, large down payment, this, that, and the other. Now you're dealing with a private owner and you're going through a private transaction, and you're taking the property subject to the mortgage, with the mortgage coming with the deed. That's what subject to is basically in a nutshell. Okay, you're getting the deed to the property, you're getting ownership, and the original mortgage of $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month is coming with it. Now, there's 2 things that are going to happen here. The original homeowner is going to sign over his ownership. Okay, ownership of the property is predicated by the deed. The deed in the title is the document that solidifies, settles who is the owner. Okay, if someone is on a mortgage, right, which means they have a loan to go ahead and they encumbered the property with a loan because they have to get that to purchase the property, right? They have to sign a deed for ownership, and then they have to sign a mortgage, okay, which is a note saying I promise to pay until it's paid off. So what's happening is that the owner now is going to sign over the deed over to you, okay? That means you're going to be the owner. However, the mortgage is going to remain in their name. So obviously the homeowner cannot sign over the mortgage to you because the mortgage was signed by him and the mortgage company. And that was a transaction between him and the mortgage company, or him and her and the mortgage company and the lender. All right, so that's how that works. So you are agreeing in lieu of taking over their problem that they can't pay the mortgage or they have to move for whatever the reason case may be, that you'll take the existing mortgage with the property and you will make the payments in return for them giving you the deed. You would not believe how often this happens. Now, this happens in particular circumstances and situations. Situations such as divorce, right? I've had situations where, couples unfortunately get divorced, and most parties have to leave the property or leave it with the other because of a court order. In most cases, it's a wife, but not always. So in the cases that I've taken over property subject to the mortgage, when the wife takes the property, in most cases, she is not prepared, even though she receives it as part of the settlement. In a lot of cases, she or he may not be prepared to pay that full mortgage or deal with the maintenance and the upkeep of the house, because they were a couple and a lot of times they were sharing the responsibilities, or maybe the husband or the wife was the main breadwinner and they were the primary proponent of paying the mortgage, insurance, taxes, upkeep, this, that, and the other. So this particular party who had a deed, who had it court ordered over to them, might not be able to take on that responsibility or don't want to take on the responsibility. So that happens quite often. And a lot of times there's an emotional stigma attached to a home where a divorce takes place. One or both parties don't want to have nothing to do with the home again because it may remind them of the situation. So that's one situation where you're going to find that people will sign their properties over. And you say, well, why don't they just sell it? Because a lot of times they may not have time to sell it. A lot of times they don't want to have time to sell it. They just want to get rid of it. I've had those situations happen. And a lot of times, again, they can't. You see, a lot of people take out second mortgages on their properties. And what happens is that if there was any equity, any room in there so they could sell it and make a profit and pay for closing costs and other things that are associated with closing costs, what happens is that second mortgage takes up that. So they cannot sell it in the traditional manner at that particular time, but they do have a pressing need to move on. So this is where we come in. And I teach people to try to come in as a service proponent, not as a sales technique, not as a buyer per se, but that you're offering a service. When you do it, offering a service, you will find that people will be more receptive to you because they've tried everything. Perhaps they tried listing with a realtor and found out that the property couldn't be sold because they would have to come out of their pocket thousands of dollars to even put it on the market and sell it at the end of closing, because there's no room for any proceeds or any profit, or to pay the realtor, or to pay the closing costs. So they went to the lender and tried to get modification or reduction of the principal, and those things didn't happen. Perhaps they have lost their job or lost their income. And you know, the pandemic is upon us right now. Right now, you're going to see quite a few situations where people are in that situation where they simply cannot pay the existing mortgage, and they will sign the property over to you. So in the traditional market, you won't have this as much, but we definitely take over properties in traditional market settings as well. But I'm getting ready to tell you, get ready for a slew and a cascade pandemic of foreclosures and people who are going to simply walk away from their property for whatever reason or another. But most cases, they're going to walk away because they simply cannot pay the mortgage, and they don't want to default, or they don't want to foreclose, or sometimes it doesn't matter. They don't care about foreclosing or default. They just want to be out of the property because of a domestic situation or a situation that is not congenial to their, staying in the property. So the bottom line is, I teach people to present themselves as a service person or service company or service couple or service investor. So you're coming in to help the people, right? I tell people, I'm here to take your problem, your liability off your hands, and I'll take it. That's what I do. Now, I present myself to people as the last alternative. I tell everyone, contact your mortgage company, number one, to see what options are available to you. Contact your realtor to see what options are available to you. Contact your friends and your family to see what options are available to you. When you've exhausted every option, then we will be there for you as the last resort, and we'll be able to take over your property, and you can walk away and move on. That's what it is in a nutshell. Now, that's how you receive the property as an investor, okay? As an investor who's practicing this subject to technique, not subject with the number two, subject to, because you've taken the property subject to the existing mortgage. That's what that means. That's why we coined it with that little paraphrase. So that's just one part of subject to. That's how you acquired a property in principle, okay? And then, of course, when you get the property, you want to go ahead and continue to pay the mortgage so it won't default, and you'll have a piece of property that you can do a number of things with. You can either move into it. Yes, that's right. You're the owner, remember? You're on the deed. You can move into the property. You can rent the property out. You can lease with option to buy. And if there's any room, you can sell it. I've had properties that when the homeowner has transferred it over to me and they've gone, a couple of months later, the value of the property has increased to the point that now I could sell it like I was the original homeowner who couldn't sell it because conditions weren't ripe at the time for the sale. But after that, I took over, then it was, conditions were ripe for the sale. And that's what you can do. So I'm going to teach you two things. I'm going to teach you how to receive the property, okay? How to talk to the homeowner, how to take the property, put it into your hands, how to document it, how to solidify your ownership. And then when you get it, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and move that property, not necessarily out of your portfolio, but move it and put it on the market so you can make an income that allows you to pay the existing mortgage out of the proceeds of the income you make, rather than paying the existing mortgage out of your pocket or your bank book. That's how this works, okay? So there's techniques for the beginning, the middle, and the end. So that's what we're going to learn in here. It's a beginner's course of subject to. And like I said, over the years, I've done this hundreds of times. I can tell you, I probably have made every single mistake that you can think of in transactions with subject to. And I'm proud of it. some people say, well, you know, I've been a subject, I made no mistakes, I did, whatever the case may be. Well, let me tell you, mistakes are valuable lessons, okay? I made mistakes in how I acquired the property. I've made mistakes in how I held it, how I sold it, how I transferred it, how I leased it. So now I know how to properly hold it better, transfer it better, lease it better, okay? I've made mistakes in partnerships with other investors and other people in various aspects of real estate investing. I've had a situation where I've had only two partners, one partner, a slew of partners, a company. So I've had those situations. So now I know, or better equipped to make a decision of how to avoid certain things in this real estate transaction. So my record speaks for itself. You can Google me. You'll see that you might find certain things on the internet that I'm very successful at, have good success, and you may see what you may term some negative connotations of what I've went through, but those are lessons, okay? So the beauty about learning from a person like myself, and I'm not the best person to learn from, I'm not saying that, but I'm an equally good person that you could learn from, because not only have I been successful, I've made the mistakes. So I can guide you to the best of my ability of what to do and what not to do. Yep. So I went through all the hard knocks, ups and downs. People have berated me, this, that, and the other, negative. You know, I've been to court. I've had subpoenas and whatnot, successfully withered the storms and all that kind of stuff, whatever the case may be. I've had a partner pass away in the business partnership, which I wasn't prepared for, which put me in severe debt and allowed, you know, made the business fall down. I couldn't take care of the other things. So I didn't have access to certain things like bank accounts, transferring property. So that was a main thing. So that's something you definitely have to position yourself in this business correctly as an entrepreneur, and make sure that you have your business structured legally, because you can have all these properties and it can come crashing down if something happens to you legally that you're not prepared for, just like any business, okay? So for the most part, I'm going to be teaching you the aspects of how to talk to the seller, how to present yourself to the seller, how to get facts about the property so you can make a educated decision if this particular property is for you, okay? And then I'm going to show you how to secure the property with a contract, okay? How to begin to secure the property with a contract, how to date the contract. I'm going to go through every aspect of the contract so you'll learn those things and you'll be able to understand real estate transactions, okay? Then I'll show you and I'll give you the documents of how to hold the property. That's right. It's important how you hold it. I've made mistakes and held property incorrectly, and had properties taken out from under me, had properties foreclosed on me because I didn't hold them properly. Okay, so there's ways to do that, to solidify yourself. As a real estate investor, you got to remember, you can be a target. People find out that you have a bunch of properties. They may want to sue you just to be frivolous or just to get your money, get your properties. You got to hold it correctly. Okay, so I give you advice on that, not legal advice. I'm going to give you my opinion based on my experience. So I'm not giving legal advice here. Okay, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a lawyer, but I'm giving you experience based on my situations doing subject to transactions. You can take those, look at those things, or let alone. Okay, so that's what I'm here for, an experienced person to give you the ins and outs. So that's basically what I'm going to do for you. So what I typically tell people is that subject to starts with particular steps, okay? The number one thing you've got to do is implement what we call a marketing plan, all right? So let me go here and share something with you, okay? Let's see, where are we? Boom, 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 boom. Oh. Okay, so here's a little transaction roadmap that I have here. I hope you can see it on the screen. I believe you are. It says a pre-closing transaction roadmap for subject to transactions. So number one, obviously, you've got to find a way to get these properties to you. So you got to implement a nice marketing plan to get your phone ringing with motivated sellers. Now, we're not necessarily going to go into that at this aspect of it, but you definitely have to have a marketing plan. Okay. And we'll go over that in future classes. I'm just giving you the premise of subject to right now, how it works. So you have a marketing plan with motivated sellers. So this is not regular sellers. These are people who are motivated to sign the deed over to you. Believe it or not, they are out there. But if you're not out there looking for that type, if you're out there just trying to get people who just want to sell their property and make a profit, they're there all day long. That's not what you want. You want motivated sellers. Motivated sellers will do this. So again, get a marketing plan, your phone's ringing, and then you got to screen the good opportunities from the bad ones, right? You can use a telephone script, which is what we have. But I generally, once you have that thing in your head, when you call on the phone, you'll be able to know what to say, what not to say, and know if this is a deal or not. Third thing you have to do is you're going to meet with the seller, all right? And during this pandemic, of course, you may or may not be able to meet with the seller immediately. A lot of these transactions, a lot of these meetings, the first meeting is going to take place on the internet, over the phone, fax, email, stuff like that. So you want to send your seller what we call a property fact sheet. This is a sheet that allows you to capture information that they verbally are going to tell you, of course, because you're going to ask them these things when you talk to them over the phone or an email or the first meeting about the property. But you want to document the things that they're going to be telling you about the property, you know, such as the square footage, the address, obviously, so you can look it up. You're going to find out about different things that may be attached to the property, how many mortgages they got, if it's one or two, interest rate, this, that, and the other, if it's in foreclosure, how many bedrooms does it have a pool, yada, 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 all the things that you need to make a decision if this property is for you. Does it need repairs? Is it turnkey? This, that, and the other. So you want to have them complete a property fact sheet, okay? And then, of course, you're going to have the seller provide the appropriate documents to back up what they're saying. You want to make sure you are talking with the seller, someone who's on the deed. This is key. You don't want to be talking to anyone who's not on the deed, because you're going to be kind of wasting your time. If someone tells you, well, I'm calling for Uncle Joe or my grandmother or my father, you have to get them on the phone, because you are going to have to do this all over again with them. And to me, it could be wasting your time. So you want to make sure that at the particular first meeting, you want to be talking with the person that is going to be able to sign the deed over to you, because you want to know if they are with this. You don't want to have to be talking to a third party who's telling you they are, and perhaps the homeowner is, or the person on the deed is not understanding what's going on. And I like to do full disclosure. I learned that, to do full disclosure with the person signing the deed over to you. That's the person that you got to know what's going on, okay? Now, unless the person does have a power of attorney to do that, of course, in those situations, you may run across that, then that's completely fine. But in most cases, you may not. So I'm going to show you how to provide this with the appropriate document, get the appropriate documents from them, how to run comps on the property. Days of the internet, now you can run your own comps, okay? Or you might have a realtor that you know, a friend or a family member, or just a realtor that you happen to know, you've used in the past or recommended to you, and they can run what we call comps, which are comparables, what houses sell for. So you get an approximate value of the house at that particular moment relative to what's owed on the mortgage. Very important for you to know, okay? A lot of times the seller can provide you with a recent appraisal, especially if they try to sell it. So you may have that to definitely aid you in the value of the property. So these are the particular things that you want the seller to provide with you. And you make it as less cumbersome and smooth sailing as possible. Remember, you're presenting yourself to the seller as a service person. I'm here to help you. I'm not here to buy your house and sell you something. I'm here to help you. And that's why you'd be surprised how many people thank me. If they're in front of me, they shake my hand, they hug me, and they thank you so much, because that's how I present myself. And that's how you can get these properties without paying any cash to the seller. This is key. This is key. Now, it doesn't mean that you don't have to pay any cash to the seller, because you may run across a property that's going to be an excellent deal. And it will be incumbent upon you to give the seller some cash to have them walk away from their problem, if it's going to be an asset to you and a liability to them. So that may be appropriate, but I'm telling you, most times, you will not have to give cash for these properties. These people will willingly walk away. I've had people who were about to foreclose, which means I would say pre-foreclose. They were going to pre-foreclosure. They knew they couldn't make the next month or two uh, rent, mortgage, and they just decided they were just going to take a loss and walk away, let it foreclose, take the hit. When they found out that myself or my company provided the ability to stop that or to mitigate that, and perhaps they would go with me and take a chance rather than knowingly foreclose and walk away. Let me turn it over to you, see what you can do. So that's how you present yourself. Okay, that's how I present myself. Okay. So, and then of course, the next step, I'll have you and the seller jointly execute what we call the real estate purchase and sale agreement. This is a particular real estate and purchase and sale agreement. It's particular to subject to transaction. So it's written for subject to. So I'll show you how to execute that. I'll explain to you all the nuances of it, the ins and outs, so you completely understand the document, because the reason why I want you to understand and know that, because your seller is going to ask you questions about the different stipulations on the document, and you need to know them, because the more comfortably you can execute and explain what you're doing to the seller, the more comfortably they'll be able to sign that property over to you. And that's how this works. Okay. And then we'll go into a few other things after that, but that's what I'm going to teach you primarily. Okay. However, there's some critical parts of subject to that you're going to have to learn. The next thing, after I teach you about the contract and how to talk to the seller and solidify the contract and get it set for closing, I'm going to teach you how to close. That's right. How to close. Now, of course, you can close traditionally with an attorney. You can close traditionally with a title company. No problem. If you wish to do that, you can. And if you do that, you're going to encumber some costs in closing. It's going to be some closing costs, all right? Because the title company is going to want a part of that. The attorney is going to want some part of that. And of course, if you're comfortable doing that, by all means do that. If you have the ability financially to close in that manner, fine. The reason why I'm teaching you this, because I'm teaching you how the closing transactions go down, so you know. So even if you do have an attorney do it, or a title company do it, you know how closing transactions go. But remember, subject to are private transactions, private agreements, private contract between you and the seller. So you're going to privately close, which you can do. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Some people call it tabletop closings, kitchen table closings, or whatever the case may be, because in most cases, you are either going to meet with your seller in their home, or you're going to meet with your seller in your office, or you're going to meet with yourself in a place that's congenial for meeting, where you're going to sign documents, you're going to talk about the premise of what they're going to do, what they want to do, what you can do for them. Okay. And by all intents and means, when you get to the last stage, which is the closing, you're going to do the same thing there. So I'm going to provide you with the information of how to close. Now, remember, I'm not giving any legal advice. What I'm doing, I'm going to provide you with my experience and show you and give you the documents that I use to close successfully, legal documents. You're going to close. You're going to learn how to put the properties in a trust to protect yourself. Okay. And in many ways, protect yourself. And also, you're going to get a particular deed that you will legally be able to record at the county recorder's office where the property is currently recorded, and you'll be as the legal owner. And I'll show you how to even put your ownership there so that it protects you. So you're going to get those documents too. Now, those are valuable documents. Most people do not know how to do this. So I'm absolutely giving you value. That's what I'm doing. I'm giving you value. I'm going to give you a contract that's particularly set for subject to, not just a real estate and purchase sale agreement, but a real estate purchase sale agreement that's particularly set for subject to. And we're going to explain to you, so you're going to understand how that works. And again, if you're comfortable with it, and when you're talking to your seller, they're going to feel that comfortability and that confidence in yourself, and they will confidently sign that over to you. That's how this works. You're not conning anybody, but you're making people comfortable, okay? That's what you want to do. And to be that way, you have to exude confidence and know what you're talking about. So I'm going to show you everything. We're going to go through every line of the purchase and sale agreement so you understand it. Because the questions that you may have while I'm teaching you are going to be the same questions that the seller's going to have. So I'm going to give you that primarily. Then I'm going to give you the closing documents. Oh yes, how to do a trust. Now I'm not giving you legal advice. I'm not an attorney, like I said. I'm going to give you my opinion based on my experience and how I have done it successfully. Successfully. Okay. So you're going to get these documents. You're going to know how to help facilitate creating a trust for yourself, if you'd like, and putting your property in the trust and getting the deed and transferring it over from the seller to you and recording that property successfully and legally in the county recorder's office. I'm going to show you how to do that. All right. Now, that's the first part of subject 2. There's a lot of things between that first part all the way to the closing. Then the second part, obviously, is very important because once you get a piece of property, you need to make a profit off of it or move into it or make some money off of it or rent it or lease it or do something with it, right? So I'm going to facilitate helping you with options to do that as well. So there's documents for that too. Okay, let's say you want to lease and rent the property. Lease with option to buy. Rent to own is fantastic. I'm going to show you how to do that. As opposed to being a standard landlord with a tenant relationship where that the boiler breaks, the pipes break, the AC breaks down or something, or windows break or toilets are messed up and you got to wake up at 3 in the morning or next day and come off your job or come off your comfortable, whatever you're doing, and go ahead and repair those out of your pocket, fix the tenant's problem constantly because it's your property and you're responsible for it. That's a landlord-tenant relationship. So I try to move you away from that and put you and your prospective buyer of the property in a situation where they're going to be renting or leasing with the option to purchase. It's a different type of scenario, a different type of contract where the contract may stipulate that either one of two things, that the tenant buyer, okay, because they're going to be purchasing in the future. That's what you want. They're not just going to be renting. Okay, with a tenant buyer, you're going to make much more profit off of your property because you're going to make money on the beginning of the deal with your tenant buyer, the middle, as the years or months or however the term of the contract goes, and then at the end when they finally finance it and you sell it to them. Okay, so you got to learn how to do that. That's why I specifically endorse tenant buyers, lease to own, rent with option to buy. In addition, the contract is going to state either one of two things, that the tenant buyer is going to be responsible for most of the repairs or all, if you can do that, and in most cases you can. So look at this. When you get a property from a seller and you have a mortgage company who you're paying a mortgage to, if your AC breaks down, are you going to call Wells Fargo or Chase or whoever your mortgage company is, say, look, you know, my air conditioner went out, I'm paying you guys a mortgage, can you send somebody out to fix the AC or replace the unit? The mortgage company is not going to do that. They just want you to continue paying the loan off in increments monthly as you agreed to in your contract. As far as the property, you're responsible for repairs because you are buying. Now, you haven't fully bought a property when you get a loan against it, because if you did, there wouldn't be no loan. You'd just be on the deed, the mortgage is paid off. Remember, you're buying while you have a mortgage. So you're going to put your tenant in the same, tenant buyer, in the same position where they are buying while they're leasing from you. So they're going to have the same type of responsibility, which means they're going to be responsible for the repairs because they intend to purchase this property and solidify ownership in the future, just like you're doing when you first get a property from from another homeowner and they sell it to you, you're paying a mortgage. So I teach you to put yourself in that position where you're not going to be coming out of pocket for the cost of repairs, for the cost of a broken water pipe, for broken AC, for toilets breaking down, windows, this, that, and the other. Your tenant buyer, if they're purchasing, is going to be responsible for that. So with that, you have to have particular types of contracts, particular type of leases, rent-to-own leases, and I'm going to show you how to do that, and I will provide those for you. So I provide a lot of value here, okay? I'm not providing theory, remember. This is not theory. You can get theory all day long. You can go on the internet, and Google subject to investing, properties, whatever, and get the theory all you want. I'm giving you absolute bona fide experience and the documentations, how to use the documents, okay? And how to solidify your ownership and make some money with this. So you're getting experience. Remember, I started doing this in 2001. So it's gonna be, next year is gonna be 20 years. So I have a lot of experience. And remember, I went through the ups, I went to the downs, and I made the mistakes, remember. So you're going to get the benefit and the value of my experience of what to do and also what not to do. And I have made every, well, I hope I have already, but I hope I've made, and I believe I have, you can make every conceivable mistake you can in real estate investing via subject to. So I'm going to give you my experience. Again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not giving you legal advice, but I'm going to give you my experience, okay, of how to do it, how I did it. If you like it, you can move with it, or you don't have to, okay? So this is different than somebody who is just learning about subject to, want to teach you something. They've been doing it for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I've done it since 2001, on and off. I've done it through every, so far, real estate crash that has happened. And so, hold on a second. I've done it through every real estate crash that has happened, 2001, .com, 2007, and of course the one that is impending, which I believe is going to be even greater than the the previous one. So in this particular one, I believe you're going to get a slew of properties, a cascade of properties that are coming down. So we're going to take a brief break here, and when I come back, we will continue. Thank you. So here we go again after the brief interlude and break. So now we're going to continue where we left off. And the next part we're going to go through is what we call a script. And of course, you know, you'll be like, oh, well, script. Yeah, script is important because you got to know what to say initially. So I'm going to share the screen with you so you get a general idea. Let's see. Ooh, where is the script? I had it here a second ago. Transaction roadmap. Please forgive me. I'm more better in teaching this than I am with the Zoom thing. So where did it go? Let me get that on the screen and share that with you. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always go to the bottom of your screen there and send me any particular questions that you may have. Let's see. Oh, I don't know how I did not get that on there. I didn't have the script on there in the beginning. Yeah. Okay, seller script. Boom, here we go. What to say when sellers call you. And this is pretty basic, you know. You can add to this, of course, and you can embellish it. And as you do this quite often, you won't probably have to have this in front of you, but it's the basic way to go ahead. So this predicates, of course, that you have a marketing thing going on where you can receive calls, emails from whether from the internet or marketing outside sources, whatever the case may be. We'll go into that at a different type of section for this, you know, a different session when it comes to marketing. So we're not going to be talking about marketing and the ways to do it particularly right now, this session. Okay, so let's say your marketing thing is on point. What to say when sellers call you? Obviously, your phone rings and the seller, you want to talk to them. You know, on the internet and doing email is one thing, but you definitely want to get the seller on the phone so you can be clear on what you're offering and be clear on what they're attempting to do. So sellers on the phone, take call from the seller. I recommend here having a tape recorder. As you can see here, it says Real Investor Academy. That used to be the name of my business back in the day. Someone now owns that domain name. Unfortunately, I made a mistake and it's gone. So that's why you see that on there. So turn on your tape recorder. Okay, so you want to know how you sound. So this will help you in the future when you're taking calls from sellers. Okay, hello, this is your name. Hello, Mr. John Doe. Are you calling about selling your home? Thank you for calling today. I'd like to ask you a few questions. It's pretty simple. Uh, See if we can work out something that's good for both of us. Would that be okay? You say, of course. Obviously, you're going to get their full name. Number one, the primary thing, you definitely want to get their phone number in case it doesn't show up on your caller ID, and you want to verify this is a good contact phone, because a lot of times you may get disconnected. Okay, you may get disconnected. It happens often. Cellular phones, home phones, whatever the case may be. They may be at work, they may be driving, maybe interruption. So you definitely want to get that so you can call back. Make sure you get a good contact number. Okay. Also ask for an email address. I don't have it listed here, but you should get an email address, because you're going to do a follow-up, and you should send them an email with things that you do and letting them know how you can help them. Okay. And of course, you want to ask them how they got your number, because you want to know how your marketing efforts are working. If you're putting out signs, if you're sending out letters, if you're knocking on doors, if you're doing the internet marketing, social media, if you have a website, you have a blog, you want to know what works and keep track of that, because what works is what you want to continue doing. Not that you want to not do the other things. And we'll talk about that in a future session, but you definitely want to know what's getting you the calls and find out what is going to be your best avenue that you're going to put any financial marketing dollars into, if you have to do that. Okay. Number 6, the most important, well, one of the important things, are you, who I'm talking to, John Jones, on title for the property? If not, ask them to have the title holder call. Like I told you before, it's very important, because you're going to have to go through this over again 2 or 3 times if you don't get the title holder on board. You want to know. If they're speaking for someone, then you say, please, can we have that someone on the phone the next time or in the future, or I'll hold. Can we set it up so they can get on the phone and we can go through this with them? You want them on there. And hopefully that's not the case, because then you have to set up another time for a phone call. But if this is the person, then of course you talk to them and you want to ask them, why are they selling their house in this way? Why do they want to do this? You want to find out what their situation is. This gives you a good idea of what's going on. You're going to use it to determine why they're motivated, how they're motivated, and what their level of motivation is. Okay, these are called motivated sellers. And you want to ask them, how soon do they want to dispose of the property? Now, is it empty already? I already moved. A lot of people have already moved out, or we're going to move out next month, or we're going to do this in 6 months. So you want to know. So this gives you an idea of what you're working with, who you're working with, time frame, if it's a good deal, or whatever the case may be. And then, of course, you definitely want to get the address. These are primary things you want to know now. This is going to give you a pre-idea of what you got. Okay. So what's the address? Because as soon as you hang up from the seller, you can Google. Now you can do things we couldn't do in 2001 and 1995 and all that when we're doing this. You can Google and look at the property online, look at the address, look at the area, look at the neighborhood. You can also see the inside of the house. A lot of people have photos posted from the prior transaction, usually when they bought it from the original seller, or maybe when they tried to sell it recently, couldn't do it. So you'll have all that. So you get a general idea of the property. Okay. You want to know if it's vacant. Boom. That helps you too, because that lets you know the level of motivation. Usually when it's vacant, they are very, very motivated by this point. They want to just let it go and make it happen, because if it's vacant and they're still paying a mortgage, they're still paying a mortgage on the house they don't no longer live in, and they're probably living somewhere else, either renting or have another mortgage, and that's a double liability on them. So that lets you know the level of motivation. Okay. Now, of course, if they're living in there, that's okay. Many times we have homeowners living in there and they have a time frame where they tell you they're going to move out. So you just want to know these things. It gets you an idea of what's going on. Okay. Is your house listed for sale with a realtor? Okay. That's another thing you want to know, because if it's listed for sale with a realtor, I generally back out. I tell them, if it's listed for sale with a realtor, why are you calling me? Because they're calling you because it's not going well with the sale with the realtor. It's been on the market. They can't sell it. They find out they have to come out of $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 out of pocket at the closing sale, because there's not enough room or equity in there for them to make money or pay the realtor or do the deal. You see? Or it's languishing on the market. That's why they call you, because if you had a realtor, you wouldn't be calling me. All right. And the thing is, I don't do deals with a realtor attached, because the realtor is going to sour your deal in most cases. Now, you have some very well experienced and educated realtors that you can work with in these transactions. But for the most part, most of them are not going to turn out in your favor because they want a commission and all these things going to happen, and they're going to actually convince the seller, and they have a fiduciary responsibility to do this for them once they sign a contract. So most people, if they have a house listed with a realtor, I have to tell them that they're going to have to release themselves from the contract if they want me to move on. And most people simply do that because remember, by this time, they're having problems with their house listed. It's not selling, or for whatever the case may be, they're having some problems with the realtor and the listing. So they simply can sign, have the realtor sign a release of contract offer. And once that happens, you get proof of that. Get proof, because I've made mistakes when I didn't do that and causes problems. Get proof that it has been released, okay, from the listing, and the realtor is no longer involved. Have them send that to you. Now, with that said, if it's not listed with a realtor, of course, you're going to get the basic information. If they have a first mortgage, the payment, the balance, the interest rate, taxes, and insurance, it's included, or is taxes and insurance paid separately? Some people have PITI, property, insurance, taxes, and all that thing paid in one sum. Some people have it paid in separate segments. So you need to know that. You need to know if there's an arrearage, which means if they're behind in a payment or two. And there's nothing wrong with taking over property where people are behind a month, 2 months, even 6 months, because they can structure modifications and facilitate forbearance plans with their lender before they turn it over to you. And if they don't know how to do that, you can give them advice on how to do that. So when you get a property, those structures and things are in place by the time you close. So don't be afraid of taking properties that have an arrearage or that have a couple of months behind. That's if that's your modus of operandi. Some investors like that because they're more motivated. That's a more motivated seller. And then you have some sellers who don't have anything behind. So they're still motivated, but that's still a good deal because you don't have to worry about rearages and making those future payments or having the seller make arrangements with the lender for that. And we'll get into that too, modifications and forbearance and such. All right. You want to find out if they got a second mortgage. Some people take out a second mortgage, or they might have a lien on the property. Let's say they have a pool. They didn't finish paying for the pool. So the pool company is going to put a lien for the balance, might be $5,000, $10,000, mechanics lien, they call those type of liens. So you might have a lien on it. You want to know who they might owe. Now, having a lien or second mortgage on the property doesn't mean that you're not going to take it. It may still be a good deal. I've taken properties with second mortgages, even third, and it still worked out. You're going to determine if that's going to work out for you. How you're going to determine that is find out what they owe, the balance, the payment, based on the property value and what you can get for it in the future, what you can rent to own to a tenant buyer in the future. So you're going to make a decision based on that. And we'll go into that at a particular time because that's a different session, different class. So these are things you got to find out. All right. Any other liens against the home? What do you think your house will be worth when it's appraised? If it's appraised, they're going to give you the total value of the house. Let me tell you, most homeowners do not know the value of their house, particularly if it's not listed, if they don't have it on the market. They have a value of when they first bought it. And in most cases, when they first bought it and now it's totally different. It's either way up or way down. Okay, so you want to get an idea of what they think. And then when you do your due diligence, you'll have a better idea when you run your comps and whatnot. And then you can start negotiating on what you're going to do, okay? You want to find out if the house needs repairs. Obviously, very, very important point. Does it need repairs? Okay, because you want to know if you're going to go into a situation where do you have to come out of your pocket and fix a leaky roof or fix a garage door or repair windows and stuff like that? You may not have to, or you may, but you want to know. See, so you want to make an educated decision about what you're going into, all right? A lot of times when you do have these particular problems, you can have sellers take care of that, or homeowners take care of that before they become, property transferred over to you, or you can decide to do it and make it happen. So bottom line, you need to know what you're into or what you're getting into, okay? Question, how much money are you hoping to make from selling your house? A lot of times, if you position your marketing property properly and you have your website up, you'll have this information on there. They're knowing that you're not really making any money initially from this. You may make money in the future. You're positioning yourself, remember, as a service. I'm here to help you and take this liability off your hands, and I'm going to take this. So that's the value that you're giving to them. So typically, and I'm telling you, in most cases, no cash is going to be exchanged if you do it in that manner. Not to say that you don't exchange cash. Remember, you will come across properties that it may be incumbent upon you to give the seller some money to move. But before you do that, make sure you get the deed. You never give cash unless you have total control and ownership of that property. Don't make that mistake. I've done that. And we teach you how to do that. Of course, you're going to get the other particulars. How many bedrooms does the house have? How many bathrooms? Square feet? When was the house built? Can you tell me more about the property? Maybe they did some add-ons, additions, this, that, and the other, yada, yada, yada. Some value, some nuances, you know, other things and whatnot. And so if the deal is interesting to you at this point, you know, then you move on and then you tell them, you know, based on what you told me so far, I think that you can qualify for my particular program in me taking over your property. Would you like to hear more about this? And if they do, then you move on and say, okay, what if it'd help you if I can go work out a way to go ahead and take over your mortgage payments immediately? Okay. And obviously immediately means when they have transferred ownership over to you and they've moved out, because you don't want to take over any mortgage payments when the homeowner is still in the property, and you don't want to pay any mortgage payments when the homeowner has not signed the deed over to you. But that's what you mean immediately. Once those two criteria has cleared, okay, when they're out, it's empty, okay, and when they've signed the deed over to you. And you say, at such time until we can sell the property and and pay off your mortgage and get it refinanced. And this works out a lot for homeowners who are motivated. Remember, most of the time they've gone through the other steps, and those other steps are not feasible for them. Selling, they talk to the mortgage company, this, that, and the other. It's just not going to work out. You are the final step. So that's what happens. If they say no, then of course, you know, you thank them. If they're not interested, refer them to a realtor if they're not already doing it. But tell them, hey, I'm going to keep your name and number, send you some information. Here's my name and number. If you reconsider, I'm always here for you to help you take this liability off your hands, and then you can walk away. All right. So, of course, you want to ask them if they say no, you know, what are they going to do if the house doesn't sell? They might say, well, I'm going to do this, maybe go into foreclosure, this, that, and the other. So you definitely want to keep their information and whatnot. Now, if people do agree on the premise that you're offering to take over the mortgage and you get the deed and they walk away, and you pretty much simply tell them how it works. I'm going to take over your mortgage payment so you can move on with your life as soon as possible. And you tell them that it's similar to a lease, because I'm essentially going to be paying a mortgage that's in your name. And you prefer to do these transactions, you prefer to do cash transactions where you're buying houses, but you accept a limited number of properties in this particular case, okay? All right, with your program. Does it sound like this will help you? And they may say yes. If they say yes, then you continue to the next step and say, well, you want to check out the property. Either you inspect it. See, prior to the pandemic, we would be able to inspect the property. We can send an inspector down there, pay $200, $250 for an inspector. Or if it's in the same city or state that you're in, we go visit it, we inspect it, do a visual inspection and whatnot. But during the days of the pandemic, of course, that might not be feasible. Maybe it is on limited conditions. But bottom line is, you want to set up a date where you can put a visual on the property, either yourself or have someone do it for you, okay? And obviously, I also tell homeowners to send me photos, current photos, not what I'm going to see on the internet. I want current photos of the property outside, the side, the backyard, the rooms, this, that, and the other. And most of them are going to be able to comply, and they will comply because, remember, they're motivated. That's why they called you, because they saw that you had something to offer to get this liability off their hands. Remember, they're looking at this as a liability. That's why they're calling you. Okay. If it was an asset, they could sell it. They can make money. They're comfortable. They're doing what they're going to do. Okay. All right. So, and tell them that you typically only work with homeowners who are interested in take care of business pretty soon. This is not a long drawn out thing. You're not talking about 6 months down the road. You want to do this quickly, as fast as possible. And you say, well, you know, I'm not going to ask you to hand over the keys as soon as we meet, but I'd like to take care of some, you know, initial paperwork at the first meeting, or send them by email and see, you know, if the situation makes sense. If it's okay, if they say yes, boom. And so the second meeting, all right, that it's either over the phone or in person, I always tell people to invite someone that they rely on for advice, okay? Sometimes it's their parents, their attorney, brother-in-law, whatever the case may be, real estate agent, so that that person can be there. Because let me tell you, if you don't do that, or you don't ask for that, what's going to happen is that you'll go over this with the seller, this, that, and the other. Then at dinner or the next day or the next week, they'll be talking to this person. They'll go, no, I don't do that. No, that doesn't sound like a good idea. Because they're not in on the conversation between you and the seller when you explain to them what you do, how it works, the benefits and the pros and the cons for it. So rather than have them shoot down your seller after you've got your seller to primarily agree initially, you have them in on the second call or on the first call or in the second visit or the initial visit to smooth this over and to get those nuances, those misconceptions out of the way, okay? Because it will save you a lot of time, all right? So basically, that's how that works, okay? So with that, you're gonna have a property fact sheet that you're gonna either email to them, fax it to them, send it to them, bring it to them on the second meeting or the first meeting. And the property fact sheet is pretty simple. Going to have an address, property taxes, purchase date, purchase price, county it's in. There's HOA, you want to know that. How many owners, husband, wife, son, father, brother, birth date. Those things you don't need, okay? Maiden name you don't need. This is an old one. I have an updated one for you. What you will need, and you should get, is the last 4 numbers of the Social Security. You're not asking for their full social. You want to tell them why. Because you're going to tell them that you're going to have to verify with their lender the facts, property fact sheet that they're giving you. So that you need to know this. And when you call the lender's going to ask you last 4 digits of the social, name of the homeowner, this, that, and the other, yada, 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 because you're going to put these things on another document that allows you to talk to the lender and to do your fact finding, because you're going to do your fact finding with the seller, but you want to make sure that it vibes with what the lender is saying. A lot of times the seller has no idea what they really owe, and you want to find out what they really owe. They may have an idea, but sometimes they don't. They might owe less or even more. Okay, so you want to find out. So, and of course, you definitely want to get multiple contact numbers. Phone numbers become disconnected. The homeowner moves out and you need to call them again and this, that, and the other. So you want to get as many numbers as possible for contact, email addresses, and of course, typical information, bedrooms, bath, number of floors, year built, owners, what type of house it is, square footage, if there's any land attached, quarter of acre, acre, this, that, and the other. Again, the name of the mortgage company. This is very important because you're going to use this information to get what we call a limited POA, which is a power of attorney that you're going to send to the lender, but you need this information to do that. Name of the mortgage company, all right, phone number, fax information, address of the mortgage company, PIN number. Some people have a PIN number when they call and they got to put that PIN. You want to know it, okay? This is typically the last 4 digits of their social. You want to know if that's it. If it's a fixed or variable mortgage, what the payment amount is, what the balance is. Taxes, insurance, escrow, is it part of the deal or something you pay separately? Is it prepaid penalty if you pay it off? There's a second mortgage on it with the same information. Insurance, if the case insurance is separate from the mortgage, you want to know what this is. You know, who's the insurance company, what the policy number is, what you're paying. Utility suppliers, okay? Electric, water, cable, gas, trash, typical things you need to know, because guess what? If you do take over this property, you're going to be the owner, so you got to know these things to facilitate getting these things back on, okay? Schools, elementary and middle, you want to know what's going on, because when you do market the property, these are the things that you're going to put in your marketing advertising to get these tenant buyers to come in, you know, make the property well, liens and encumbrances, we talked about that. First and second mortgages, this, that, and the other. And of course, you want to describe anything else about the property that you need to know. Improvements, does it have any rodents, pests, electrical, heating, air, roof, plumbing, any problems? Notes about the area, stores, restaurants, stuff around it, because you can use that for marketing. So this is going to be basic information that you should get, because you need this to make an educated decision if you're going to move forward, okay? And then, of course, along with the property fact sheet, I always send them this. It's called residential real estate sales disclosure. This happens in traditional sales of property, and I think as an investor, you should have this too. This solidifies and let them know that you're on point, because what's going to happen is that you're going to have the seller check off these things. Foundation, any problem with the foundation? Yes or no? No. Most times they're going to say no, 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 no. Electrical system, no. But they're going to say no, nothing's wrong with it, because they want you to take the property. However, you can use this to your advantage if they sign this and say no, 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 and later there's a problem that could come up that will allow you to get out of the deal if you want, or stay in the deal, but at least you have options here. So this is very important that you do this. It's called real estate sales disclosure on the seller's part, all right? So with that said, then we go over to the deal. Now, after you get all this information and talk to the seller, you get the property fact sheet, you set up a date for a meeting with them, and you get photos of the property. You do your due diligence, which I'll show you how to do, teach you how to do, which means that you're going to find out what the comps are. You're going to see what the property's worth. You're going to have to talk to the lender to see what they owe. Maybe you haven't done it fully, but you're going to get a minimal conversation, which means you can get on the phone with the seller, right? And the lender is a three-way, have them ask the questions. I would do that, so you find out. They should not be opposed to this if they want to do the deal. If you have a seller that balks at doing this, then that lets you know something's wrong. Wait a minute, you want me to take over your mortgage and you're not going to allow me to hear what's going on with the property with the lender of the mortgage I'm going to pay in the future? So if they balk with that, something's wrong. Most of them are not going to balk because they want you to hear what's going on. And, you know, this is going to get you your preliminary information. So once you got all that and you believe that this may be a deal for you, because it may or may not be a deal, that's okay. If it is, you're still going to find out because we're still going to do some more fact finding. So at this point, you want to go ahead and get a agreement between you and the seller, contract. So that's where we go into this document here. This is called a standard real estate purchase and sale agreement, but by no means is it standard. This is set for subject to specifically. So I'm going to show you how you go through this, the standard real estate purchase and sale agreement. All right. I'm going to show you how you record this, not actually record it, how you get the seller to agree to understand the terms and whatnot. We're going to go through all these things on this. You're going to understand every single line: earnest money, conveyance, closing dates, property condition, subject to the existing mortgage based on the lender's perception, the seller's perception, yours, all these other obligations, seller financing, if there is any, things about personal property, all that kind of stuff, access, inspection, dispute resolution. So you're going to learn all these things. Okay, assignment, how to assign this to someone. You know, you can take it as simply assign it and flip it to another investor. Yes, you can do this if you have the proper document that's included in this. You don't need a separate one, okay? So all these things we're going to go through. So in our next session, we will go through that. All right, but at this point, I'm going to end this. If you have any questions, I'm going to put this up on the group site, so that way you'll be able to play it back and go through. If you have any questions, let me know. We'll answer these questions in the next session that's coming up, and I'll give you the date of the next session. Just keep on tabs of the group that you're in or the Facebook page that you're on, and we'll let you know. But we will go through this the next time. Critical document. This is almost the bread and butter. It's part of it, but it's a critical part of it. It's a special purchase and sale agreement for subject to. I'm going to show you how to utilize this to your advantage, and you're going to know this thing. Once you know this, you'll be seasoned. You'll know how to do this, okay? And be able to lock these deals down, okay? So with that said, I do thank you for your time, and we're going to end it at this moment. And again, if you have any questions that predicate you needing answers right away, just simply go to the Facebook group or the Facebook page that you saw this invitation and send me a message, okay? And you can also email to the creative real estate investors @gmail.com. All right. And whatever number you see attached to the Facebook page and the website, you can also call as well. And we'd love to answer your questions and get you prepared for the next session. All right. So this was a brief session. I'm telling you, I'm giving you real deal information. I'm not a guru. Remember, I've been doing this for almost 20 years. I know what to do, what not to do. I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm going to tell you, I made plenty of mistakes. I made mistakes and paid for them. So I think that I'm valuable to you because unlike others who can tell you, well, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do. I can say that too, but I can tell you, this is what you don't do. This is what you don't do. So the mistakes and the lessons that I've learned, I think are going to be very valuable to you. Okay. Now I don't know it all, but I know enough to teach you how to get a property successfully, flip it, rent it, make some money on it so you can be a successful investor in this regard. Okay, so this is to add to your education that you're getting from other seminars or Google or whatever the case may be. And hopefully we'll have a great networking group that we put together based on this. So with that, peace be unto you, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening.